Ladies and gentlemen, some new books here. I'm going to start off with a stack of really good ones, and I hope somebody will send in a donation and ask me to do something on some of these books. The Bloody Falls of the Coppermine, or of Coppermine, which is the name of a town. Madness, Murder, and the Collision of Cultures in the Arctic, 1913, by Mackay Jenkins. This goes with a recent like that I've had for books about Alaska, or on Alaska. Tales from the Edge, True Adventures in Alaska. It's a good book, very light read. I made it through it pretty quick. And by Larry Kanayat. Nothing really fantastic in it unless you wanted to hear about Alaska, which I've been interested in recently. In fact, only one or two margin notes in the whole book, and those aren't really worth sharing. Excellent book, though. Selected Essays from George Orwell, published in 1957. He had only published 1984 in 1948, I think, or 50 or something, right around there. So this was published not too long after he published his seminal work. He was very popular from publishing Animal Farm in the early 1940s, I believe. This has an extremely interesting essay on Down in the Mine, called Down in the Mine, on coal mining. And I'll just read you the opening sentence. Our civilization is founded on coal, more completely than one realizes, until you stop to think about it. The machines that keep us alive and the machines that make machines are directly or indirectly dependent upon coal. Interesting, because now it's oil, so that's an interesting essay. The Shadow of the Poorhouse, A Social History of Welfare in America, by Michael B. Katz. This is about welfare before there was such thing as government welfare, and how did people take care of it. You know, if the government doesn't pay people and do food stamps and give them money to live, then they would be on the street and they would starve to death and die, right? Well, then how did we get along clear up until the 1960s without the government doing that? And it used to be family, friends, church organizations, neighbors, charitable situations. You know, it happened. It got along. The American Supreme Court, by Robert G. McCluskey. He divides the history of the United States into three periods and talks about the direction, the big changes that the court made in our laws and stuff during each of these phases or periods. I haven't read it yet, but it will be, I think, pretty good. The editor to this series is Daniel J. Boorstin, and I've read several books of his. This was published in 1960, and it was published by the University of Chicago Press, and the author says that the group at University of Chicago had a large influence on him, and as you may know, the Austrian boys ended up at the University of Chicago. So his thinking about the court and the way the court went was influenced by them. That should be a good book. From X-Rays to Quarks, Modern Physicists and Their Discoveries, by Emilio Segre, S-E-G-R-E, published in 1976. Goes over the Curies and the discovered radioactivity, Rutherford and the transmutation of elements, Planck and the idea of quantization, Einstein. Now, quantization is just that always this energy goes from one place to another in packets, and meaning it's carried by particles ultimately. And the only reason it really confused science so bad is because everyone's so Kantian and they just can't wrap their heads around reality. You know, they think that every one of their experiments is just our perception rather than actual reality, and it's just some of their theories are really held back by their thinking. Einstein, New Ways of Thinking About Space-Time, Relativity, and Quanta. Sir Rutherford and Nelson, Bohr and the Atomic Models, Enrico Fermi and Nuclear Energy. So that'll be a good book. The Complete Humorous Sketches and Tales of Mark Twain. The Complete humorous sketches and tales. Turns out Mark Twain was involved in deciding what went into this, and it was all of the sketches and humorous tales he saw fit to publish. So there might be some missing, but that's a pretty good sized book. It's got a lot of little stories and stuff in it. This is going to be a damn good book, I think. The Great Iron Trail by Howard. Oh dear, my Roman numerals are rusty. MCMLXII. I opened this up and I thought it might be the Great Iron Trail. It might be a novel. And I opened it up and I read the first sentence in this paragraph right in the middle said, "The new mayor of Chicago in 1839 or 72 or whatever." And I immediately closed it. I said, okay, that's not a novel. And I bought that for $1. All these so far are $1. Some 50 cents here, but the rest are going to be $1. Rabelais, Gargantua, and Pantagruel. What is Pantagruel? What is a Pantagruel? Pantagruelizing, that is to say, drinking your fill. Yeah. Rabelais. Probably not pronouncing that right. It's probably a Rabelais. Karl Popper, The Logic of Scientific Discovery. Please don't tell me how to pronounce his name. I know. If you can disrespect someone by mispronouncing their name, it's always a good idea. People have called me Professor Crapper. This is full of some pretty silly nonsense. They don't even waste time getting silly. In the preface, it's silly. Quote, "There is at least one philosophical problem in which all thinking men are interested. It is the problem of cosmology, the problem of understanding the world, including ourselves and our knowledge, as part of the world." So all thinking men want to understand the world and ourselves as part of the world. That's verbiage. That's just a stupid, stupid thing to say. And that's not just one problem. That is every single philosophical subject in the universe fits under that sentence. And he starts off, "There's at least one philosophical problem in which all thinking men are interested. It is the problem of everything." That's a stupid sentence. Really, that's gonna raise my blood pressure to read that. Those books that I've just done up to this point, I consider fantastic, and they are high on my reading list. Molière, The Misanthrope and Other Plays for 50 cents. Good to have that around. I've stopped buying for the most part anything fiction or literature or poetry, because I've got quite a large section on it, and I don't read that much of it. Some poetry, but almost nothing fictional do I read. So I could be expanding my library even quicker, but I've pretty much got what I need. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, The Gulag Archipelagial, Volume 3. I have all 3 volumes in a condensed version about as big as this. But I hope in the future to see Volume 1 and 2 around somewhere. The Later Roman Empire by J.B. Bury, published in '68 or something like that. If you go watch my video series, 6 videos long, it's published in '58. 6 videos on the, what was it, Byzantine and the Seljuk Turks. You'll get some samples from this, and some samples from Ottoman Empire and Islamic Tradition by Norman Itzkowitz. Interesting if you're, into reading about those things. Published in 1972. By the way, I showed a map of Constantinople, and I didn't realize that the video camera thing I'm using, called Photo Booth, records me opposite the way that I am. Does that make sense? This will probably not look as Elizabethan and Jacobean poets, and to you on your screen it'll probably be backwards. From Marlowe to Marvell.